Hey, no, we're on Vav. Vav Aleph.
Yeah, that's right.
If one eats truma inadvertently, he must pay its value plus one fifth. Whether he eats it or drinks it or anoints himself with it, whether it is clean truma or unclean truma, he must pay one fifth and a fifth of the fifth. He may not pay in truma, but in tithe chulin, which becomes truma, and that which is given in payment is truma. And if the priest decides to forego it, he cannot do so. If the daughter of an Israelite ate truma and afterwards married a priest, if the truma she ate had not been acquired by a priest, she pays its value and a fifth to herself. But if she ate truma which the priest had already acquired, she pays its value to the owners and a fifth to herself. For they said, if one eats truma inadvertently, he pays its value to the owners and a fifth to whomever he wishes. If one gives his laborers and his guests truma to eat, he pays its value and they pay the fifth. This is Reb Meir. But the Chachamim say they pay its value and the fifth, and he pays them the value of the meal.
Okay. Dalit. Now we're going to see an interesting little interplay between between stealing, the knas that's involved in stealing, and with truma that was accidentally eaten.
Right.
So here we got a guy who's a ganav. He stole truma. Okay, ganav truma v'lo achala, but he hasn't eaten it. Okay, so now the din with a thief is if he steals something and he's caught red-handed with the stolen goods in his hands, what does he have to do? He has to pay kafel.
Right.
He has to pay double.
Right.
Okay, but it's truma. Okay, mishalem tashlumei kafel demei truma. So the kafel, so of course he has to return the truma that he stole, right? But in terms of the kafel, what's the kafel that he's got to pay? It's the value of truma. It's not the value of chonin. Okay, that's simple enough. Now, achala, what happens if he stole it and he ate it? He didn't realize it was truma. Okay, mishalem, what is he going to pay? Shnei kranim v'chomesh. So first of all, keren v'chomesh min achulin. So he has to. So first of all, there's the keren v'chomesh that he has to return because like anyone else who inadvertently ate truma, he now has to pay back chulin that's going to turn into truma plus a chomesh to make up for the truma aspect. Okay, the keren to make truma, and now because he's a ganav and he was and he had witnesses who came against him, he also pays the kafel. The kafel is based on the demei truma. Okay. Ganav trumas hekdesh v'achala. Now, what's trumas hekdesh? This is where a kohen received truma, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to donate this truma to the mikdash," which is also legitimate. So it doesn't lose its din of truma; it just now becomes hekdesh.
Mm-hmm.
So now somebody stole this truma that's hekdesh, and he accidentally ate it. So what's he going to have to do? Well, there are two aspects of kedusha. There's the kedusha of truma, and now there's kedusha of hekdesh. Remember, with me'ilah, if somebody commits me'ilah and they have to repay what they misappropriated plus a chomesh.
Right.
So here, mishalem shnei chomshim bakeren. So here he's going to have two chomesh, 2 times chomesh he has to pay back. One for the truma, and one for the hekdesh. Okay, and then he also has to, of course, give back the keren, which is going to be chulin. He's going to have to give back chulin, which is going to become truma. Why? But he doesn't pay the kafel. Why? She'ein b'hekdesh tashlumei kafel. Because kafel is only something that applies to somebody who stole from. Kafel is only it's only for someone who stole from an individual, not for someone who stole from the mikdash. So the din of kafel just doesn't apply over here. So there's some interesting little configurations over here of what he does and doesn't have to pay in terms of keren and chomesh. Okay.
Okay.
Mishna Hay. Ein mishalmin min haleket umin hashicha umin hapea umin hafker. So let me just preface this the beginning of the Mishnah by saying this is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir says that you're not. Let's say you have a Yisrael who accidentally ate truma. He says now not only can you not give back from truma, but you can't give from leket shicha and paya. okay, or from hefker, okay, because all of these things were pater in the first place from truma, and according to Rabbi Meir, you can't your tashlum for truma has to be something that is at least in the parasha of truma,
Well,
where
we've had
leket
this
shich.
before.
Mhm.
We've had this before, where between Leket and Shikha, you can't use that to pay back anything. I think we've had it.
No, you're thinking of Shemitah. You're thinking of Shemitah
Oh,
can't be
right.
used to
Okay.
pay back.
Okay. Right.
Now, the uniqueness of Leket Shich, Peah, and Hefker is that in all cases, there are no Trumas and Masros on them. Okay, and since Rabbi Meir holds that the truma has to be given from chulin that was originally in the parasha of truma, that you could have that that truma was taken from it. So he says you can't use those things to substitute for truma. So, and furthermore, now comes the category of things that have an aspect of kedusha to them. So it was Maaser Rishon, but and the truma, and it's had trumas Maaser taken off it. So this is so Maaser Rishon was a required thing to take off the produce, and he's saying that this has already got an aspect of kedusha to it and can't be used. Lo mi Maaser Sheni v'hekdesh nifnu, and even from Maaser Sheni or hekdesh that were redeemed. So now they have returned to chulin, but since they have an aspect of kedusha because they were once Maaser Sheni or they were once hekdesh, you can't do it. Why? She'ein hakodesh pode es hakodesh divrei Rabbi Meir, because something that was once kodesh cannot be used to redeem something that is not kodesh, and this is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Chachamim matirin ba'elu. Chachamim give a big shrug and say no. All of everything that you've said over here, they're all 100% chulin, and it's totally legitimate to use this kind of chulin to substitute for truma that was accidentally eaten. And
Okay.
halacha follows chachamim. Okay. Mishnah Vav. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Mishalmin mimin al she'eino mino, ubilvad she'yishalem min hayafe al hara. So let's say somebody ate some truma, and he says, oh, I can't substitute for, let's say he ate truma wheat, but there's no more wheat left. So you can find some. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, you can find any other species of chulin and turn that into truma, and give that to the kohen instead. Okay. He's got to substitute for a higher quality produce. He can't now substitute it for something that's lower quality and say, let the kohen deal with that. It's got to go up. Rabbi Akiva Omer ein mishalmin ela min min al mino. He says no. You got to stay within the same species. You can't substitute barley for wheat or vice versa. Lefichach im achal kishuin shel erev shvius. Let's say he ate cucumbers in the year before Shemitah, and he looks around for some more cucumbers to substitute for the ones that he ate, and he can't find any. And now it's the Shemitah year, and all the sfichin are asur. He can't find cucumbers anywhere. Yamtin lekishun shel motzei shvius. He has to wait for over a year to get more until the cucumbers of the 8th year have grown. Vishalem mehem, and then he can pay back his debt. Mimakom shi Rabbi Eliezer mekel misham Rabbi Akiva machmir. They actually have their drasha from exactly the same pasuk. Shneimar v'nasan lakohen es hakodesh. So the pasuk in Vayikra says that and he should give to the kohen it's a kodesh. He should give to the kohen the newly sanctified things. Okay. Kol shehu ra'oi lios kodesh. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer says it's a kodesh is anything that could be kodesh, anything that's worthy of being kodesh. Says Rabbi Eliezer, and that's how he learns his kula. Rabbi Akiva Omer v'nasan lakohen is a kodesh. Kodesh she'achal is hakodesh. He says it's the kodesh, the kodesh that he ate. So they're both seeing interesting. They're both seeing support for their point of view from the same pasuk. And Kahati doesn't paskin the halacha over here, so I'm not sure who the halacha would be like, but I think we'll wait until we have a mikdash and kodshim again to find out what the halacha is.
Okay.
Okay, let's do chazara.
Okay.
Dalet base.
If an Amoritz had produced in the storehouse, is that right? Yeah, an Amoritz produced in the storehouse and gave one sa'ah to a Levite and one sa'ah to a poor man, he may separate another 8 sa'ahs and eat them. So says Reb Meir, but the Chachamim say he may only separate in accordance with the exact quantity. The measure of Truma, a generous person 1/40th. Beit Shammai says 1/30th, an average person 1/50th, and the grudging person 1/60th. If one separated Truma and found that it was 1/60th, it is Truma, and he need not separate. If he added, it is liable to Masurus, and if he found that it was 1/61st, it is Truma. But he must separate again according to his custom by measure, weight, or number, and Rabbi Yehuda says even from that which is not close by. If one says to his agent, go and set aside Truma, he must separate according to the owner's mind. If he does not know that his owner's mind, he separates according to the average person. 1/50th, if he gave to 10 less or 10 more, his Truma is Truma. If he essentially added even only one, his Truma is not Truma.
Right, if he violates his shlichus, then he falls back into the category of the first Mishnah of somebody who's hatorem mashena shelo.
Okay. Just going to, Judge, want to fill up my glass right there.
Yeah.
All right.
Gimel ches.
Gimel ches. One may not build steps by the ravines in the 6th year after the rains have ceased, because this would be preparing them for the 7th year. But he may build them in the 7th year after the rains have ceased, because this would be preparing them for the 8th year. He may not block them with earth, but he may make an embankment. Any stone that he can take when stretching out his hand may be removed. Shoulder stones may be taken from anywhere, and a contractor may bring them from anywhere. Which are shoulder stones? Any that cannot be taken with one hand. So says Reb Meir, but Reb Yossi says, as their name implies, those that are carried 2 or 3 on the shoulder. One who builds a wall between his own and the public domain may dig down to the rock. What shall he do with the earth? He heaps it up in the public domain and then restores it to its order. So says Reb Yeshua. Rabbi Akiva says, just as one may not cause damage to the public domain, so also may one not restore it to order. What shall he do with the earth? He heaps it up in his field in the manner of those who take out manure. Likewise, if one digs a well, a trench, or a cave. Okay.
Right, brachas base Zion.
And when Tavi, his slave, died, he accepted condolence for him. His disciples said to him, have you not taught us, our rabbi, that one does not accept condolences for slaves? He said to them, my slave Tavi was not like the rest of the slave. He was a worthy Akasha person. A bridegroom may recite the Shema on the first night if he wishes to. Gamliel says, not everyone who wishes to assume the name may assume it. One whose dead lies before him is exempt from reading Shema and from Tefillah and from Tefillin. The ball bearers and their replacements, and the replacements of the replacements, those going before the coffin and those coming after the coffin. Those that are needed for the coffin are exempt, and those that are needed for the bier are obliged. These and those are exempt from Tefillah.
Right, because you can sort of slip in a Kriyas Shema while you're standing in the back of the crowd, but if you're busy in the middle of a funeral procession, you're not going to stand for Amidah. Hey, Olos Ches Hey.
These items neither convey tumah nor act as barriers against tumah. Seeds and plants that are connected to the ground, other than the plants listed above, hailstones, snow, frost, ice, salt, an animal that jumps from one spot to another, a person who jumps from one spot to another, a bird that flies, a garment that flutters, and a ship that sails on water. But if the ship was tied with something that can hold it in place, or a stone was placed in the garment, it conveys tumah. Rav Yossi says a house on a ship does not convey tumah. If 2 sealed barrels, each containing a piece of corpse the size of a chazayas, are located inside a house, the barrels remain tahor and the house remains tameh. If one of the barrels...
this is a great case, actually. just think about it again. You've got two barrels, each with they've got a tamid pasil,
Right.
and each one's got a chatzi zayis in a mace. So the barrel itself remains tahor because the chatzi zayis is not enough to be matame.
Right.
Okay, so it doesn't now the characteristic of a tamid pasil is that it keeps tuma out, but it can't keep tuma in. So even if there is only a chatzi zayis inside there, that chatzi zayis is, as far as the house is concerned, the chatzi zayis is inside the house. And now you've got two barrels, each one of which has got a chatzi zayis in it. So as far as the house sees, there are two chatzi zayisim under its roof, which means that the
Right.
house is tameh, but everything inside the barrels remains tahor because the barrels themselves are still protected by the tzamid pasil because there's not enough tumah in each barrel to break the tzamid pasil.
Well, the
You
house
hear that? It's
becomes
like a valve. It's like a valve. The tzamid pasil in this case, it allows the tumah out, but it doesn't allow it back in.
right. Right. So the two of them combine enough to make a tummy, to make the house
To
tummy.
make the house tameh, but the
Yeah.
house being tameh is the tzamid pasil is still protected. It still protects what's inside it from the house.
Right. Right.
It's quite ironic that anything else that's inside the barrel with the chatzi zayis, even touching it, is tahor,
That's
but
strange.
everything else in the house is tameh.
That's strange. Okay. If one of the barrels was open, that barrel and the room are tummy, and the other barrel remains sahor. A similar ruling applies to two chambers that open into a room.
Right. So the same thing would happen if you've got two different rooms and you've got, let's say, two bedrooms and an entrance hall, and there's a chatzi zayis in each of the two bedrooms.
Right.
So each of the two bedrooms is tahor because remember the tumah wants to go out, not in. So the tumah comes together and the tumah from each half zayis of in each bedroom comes together in the entrance hall, and they make a full zayis in the entrance hall. So now the entrance hall becomes tameh,
Mm-hmm.
but the two bedrooms are tahor.
That's very strange.
Yeah,
It's
I think the Mishnah enjoys coming up with these weird edge cases which are completely counterintuitive.
a
I
bee,
enjoy. I'm glad that they recorded them because they're quite fun.
a beehive is located in the doorway of a house and its mouth outdoors. An kazayas of corpse is located outdoors, either below the hive or above it. Any item that is directly above or below the chazayas becomes tameh. Whatever is not directly below or above the chazayas and whatever is inside the hive or the house remains tahor. If the chazayas piece is inside the house, only that which is inside the house becomes tameh. If
Right. So
it's
this over here is this whole parak is dealing with the cases of we said you have to get the case. There's machlokes about what this case exactly is, but we went with I think it was Tiferes Israel. Ma'anei Yeshua, sorry, Ma'anei Yeshua has a mahalach that's consistent throughout this whole parak, which is that the kli that we're talking about, this kaveris, is a kli adama. It itself is impervious to tuma, and it's in other words, it's a sun-baked or a sun-dried kli. Right, it's made out of mud. It never went into a kiln. It just was made out of wet mud and it dried. Okay, so now that that kli itself does not become tameh, but it can form an ohel, and it can form and we'll see in all these cases. So now if it's inside if the kaveris is inside the doorway and its mouth is facing outwards, okay. Now when the kazayas from the mace is underneath it or on top of it, in the outside of the outside of the house, right? So whatever is in the vertical line of this kazayas, above it and below it, this is all tameh because it breaks through the kli adama can't be mafsik. It's not going to stop the tumah. It's going to go straight through. Okay, but culture eno can get his eyes, and whatever's not in that vertical line, and the inside of the kli is protected. Okay, and the house is also protected. The house, the tumah doesn't get pushed into the house, so everything else is tahor. But inside the house, if the tumah is inside the house, Ein tame el habayis. Only the house becomes tame because the mouth of the kli is facing outwards, so there's no way for the tumah to get inside it. Besocha, if however the tumah is inside the kli, then everything is tame because the kli is partially inside the house and partially out, and the upper wall of the kli forms an ohel. It forms an ohel to spread tumah, but not to block tumah. So once it's partially inside the house. So the tumah goes inside the kli, and then it breaks through and is matame the house as well. Okay, that's our introduction to that parak. Fine. Nizikin.
Okay.
Edios. Hey Gimel.
Rabbi Yishmael says 3 matters are among the lenient decisions of Beis Shammai and the stringent decisions of Beis Hillel. Koheles does not render one's hands tamei in accordance with the words of Beis Shammai, but Beis Hillel says Koheles does render one's hands tamei. The purification waters that accomplish their purpose, which Beis Shammai declares them tahor. Beis Hillel declares them tamei. Ketzak Beis Shammai declares it tahor, but Beis Hillel declares it tamei, and similarly with respect to tithing. Rav Eliezer says 2 matters are among the lenient decisions of Beis Shammai and the stringent decisions of Beis Hillel. The blood of a woman who has given birth and did not yet immerse in a mikveh, and Beis Shammai says it is like her saliva and her urine. But Beis Hillel says it generates tumah, both moist and dry. But Beis Shammai can concede concerning a woman who has given birth in a state of ziva that the blood generates tumah, both moist and dry. Let me just see this one. Okay. 4 brothers, 2 of whom were married to 2 sisters, and those who were married to 2 sisters both died. Both of these sisters require chalitza, and they may not be taken to yibum. And if the brothers went ahead and married the sisters, they must divorce them. Reb Eliezer says in the name of Reb Shammai that they may keep them, but Beis Hillel says they must divorce them.
That's according to Rabbi Eliezer. This is that's again one of the chumras of Beis Hillel.
Right. Okay. And Megillah. No, I don't want to say Megillah.
No, Moed Katan.
When may we not purchase homes, nor slaves, nor domestic animals, except for use during the festival, or to provide for the needs of the seller, one who otherwise has nothing to eat? We may not move objects from one house to another, but we may move objects from one house to another within his courtyard. We may not bring vessels from the artisans' shops, but we may, for if one fears for them, he may move them into a different courtyard. We may cover drying figs with straw. Rabbi Yehuda says we may even stack them, and vendors of fruit, clothing, and utensils may sell their wares in private for use during the festival. Trappers, cereal makers, and bean pounders may ply their trade in private for festival needs, and Reb Yossi says they impose a stringency upon themselves. These people may cut their hair during Chol HaMoed. One who arrived from abroad, was released from captivity, left prison, or the excommunication whose ban was lifted by the Chachamim. Similarly, one who applied to a stage and had been released from his vow, the Nazir or the Matzorah who returns from a state of contamination to a state of purity. And these people may launder their clothing during Chol HaMoed.
Stop. That's already Mishna base. That's for tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Terrific. Thank you. Have a
pleasure.
You too. Have everything.
It's Hashem. We'll see you tonight.
I'll probably still be drinking water. So.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.